Scene opens, narrator speaking over historical footage of Switzerland, then shifting to World War II scenes. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're re-diving deep into a topic that might challenge everything you thought you knew about one of Europe's most famous countries. When you think of Switzerland, what comes to mind? Towering Alps, delicious chocolate, and of course, its legendary neutrality. During World War II, while the world was engulfed in flames, Switzerland remained an island of peace. But was this neutrality born from a noble commitment to peace, or was there something much darker, much more cynical, at play? The story we are about to uncover suggests that while nations fought for their very survival, Switzerland was playing a very different game, a game of profit. Let's set the scene. It's the late 1930s, and Europe is on the brink of war. As Nazi Germany begins its aggressive expansion, most countries are forced to pick a side. But Switzerland declares itself neutral, just as it had in past conflicts. On the surface, this seems admirable. A nation dedicated to staying out of the fight, a beacon of stability in a chaotic world. The popular image is one of a plucky, well-defended nation, ready to protect its borders from any invader. But the truth is far more complex and, frankly, much more disturbing. Switzerland's neutrality wasn't just about defending its mountains, it was about protecting its banks. From the very beginning of the war, Switzerland positioned itself as the financial hub for a war-torn continent. And its most significant client? Nazi Germany. While Allied bombers were trying to cripple the Nazi war machine, Swiss banks were helping to finance it. This wasn't a secret. It was a core part of their economic strategy. The Swiss National Bank accepted vast quantities of gold from Germany's Reichsbank. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars worth, which would be billions in today's money. This gold was the lifeblood of the Nazi war effort. It allowed them to purchase critical raw materials from other neutral countries like Spain, Portugal, and Turkey, materials like tungsten and chromium, which were essential for producing tanks, planes, and weapons. Without this financial lifeline, Germany's ability to wage war would have been severely hampered. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. Where did this gold come from? A significant portion of it wasn't German-owned. It was stolen, plundered. It was the life savings of Jewish families, ripped from their homes and sent to concentration camps. It was the national reserves of countries that had been invaded and occupied by the Nazis, nations like Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. Swiss bankers and officials knew this. Allied intelligence repeatedly warned them that the gold they were accepting was looted. They knew it was stained with the blood and tears of countless victims. But they kept accepting it. Why? Because it was profitable. Business was business, and the source of the gold was a secondary concern. The Swiss franc, backed by this massive influx of gold, became one of the world's strongest currencies. Switzerland was getting rich off the spoils of a war it claimed to have no part in. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's bad, but maybe they were just afraid of a German invasion. It's a fair point. Switzerland was completely surrounded by Axis powers, and they did have a credible military defense plan, known as the National Redoubt, which involved retreating into the Alps to fight a guerrilla war. But their economic collaboration went far beyond what was necessary for survival. Switzerland didn't just bank for the Nazis, they sold them crucial war materials. Swiss companies like Oerlikon manufactured anti-aircraft guns and munitions, which were sold directly to Germany. These were the very weapons used to shoot down Allied planes. Precision instruments, watches for pilots, and other industrial goods flowed across the border, all contributing directly to the Nazi war effort. But wait, the story gets even more complicated. Because while Switzerland was fueling the Axis machine with one hand, it was also doing business with the other. The Allies, the United States and Britain, were also trading with Switzerland. They bought Swiss precision tools and other goods they couldn't get elsewhere. So, Switzerland was effectively a double agent, profiting from both sides of the greatest conflict in human history. They were the war's middleman, the broker who didn't care who won, as long as the money kept flowing. This cynical balancing act is the true face of their wartime neutrality. It wasn't about peace, it was about pragmatism taken to a ruthless extreme. Perhaps the most tragic part of this story, however, doesn't involve gold or guns. It involves people. As persecution intensified across Europe, thousands of Jewish refugees saw Switzerland as their last hope. They risked everything to cross the mountains, seeking safety from the horrors of the Holocaust. They arrived at the border, exhausted and terrified, believing in the Swiss promise of sanctuary. And what happened? In many cases, they were turned away. The Swiss government adopted a strict and heartless refugee policy. In 1938, they even requested that Germany stamp the passports of German Jews with a J to make them easier to identify and reject at the border. The official justification was that Switzerland was a small country and could support a large influx of refugees. They claimed they had to distinguish between political refugees, who were sometimes accepted, and racial refugees, meaning Jews, who were generally not. Thousands, including women and children, were handed back over to German or French authorities, which for most was a death sentence. They were sent back to the very fate they were trying to escape. This policy wasn't born of necessity. It was born of a cold calculation, and in some corners, outright antisemitism. The boat is full, they claimed. But for the bankers and industrialists, the vaults were never full enough. So, when we look back, the picture becomes clear. Swiss neutrality during World War II was not the noble, principled stand it's often portrayed as. It was a business strategy. While the world burned, Switzerland warmed its hands by the fire, profiting from the aggressors and the victims alike. They laundered stolen gold that financed a genocidal war machine. They sold weapons to the Nazis. And they closed their doors to the desperate people fleeing the consequences of that very war. It's a dark chapter in the nation's history, one that was hidden and denied for decades. It wasn't until the late 1990s, thanks to pressure from international organizations and the work of historians, that Switzerland was forced to confront this uncomfortable truth. Commissions were formed, and banks eventually agreed to pay settlements to Holocaust survivors and their families. But the legacy remains. It forces us to ask difficult questions about the meaning of neutrality. Is it ever truly possible to be neutral in the face of such evil? Or does neutrality sometimes become a convenient excuse for inaction and complicity? The Swiss story shows that standing on the sidelines isn't a morally neutral act. When you have the power to help, choosing to do nothing, or worse, choosing to profit, is a choice in itself. It is a sobering reminder that history is never as simple as we'd like it to be, and even the most pristine reputations can hide dark secrets. What do you think? Does this change your perception of Switzerland? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. It's a complex and sensitive topic, and I'd love to hear your perspective. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video insightful and want to explore more hidden histories, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.